Hello, welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk about the pineal gland and its mechanism, and also the biological clock, and also I want to talk about some other pathways which happens between the hypothalamus and also the epithalamus. First of all, in here I want to clarify what I have drawn. So in here I have the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus part has several nuclei, and for the pineal gland I need the suprachiasmatic nucleus and also paraventricular nucleus, which they have relation to each other and they contact each other in the biological clock pathway. So what happens? First of all, let me introduce you the rest. Well, here is the thalamus. And also in here I have the pineal gland, which is a part of the epithalamus. In fact, the epithalamus has some parts. One of them is pineal gland, one of them is habenula or habenula commissure. But in here I'm going to specifically talk about this pineal gland, which is my key, and it produces melatonin, and I want to see how it produces melatonin. So imagine there will be the light to the retina. This is the eyeball, okay? So here is the eyeball and I have the retina in here. So the light will come and achieve the retina, and finally the action potential is made by bipolar cells and then by ganglion cells, and the ganglion cells are making the action potential, and finally in here the neurotransmitter is released because the light has been in here and neurotransmitter is released. This neurotransmitter is called glutamate. It is positive. And what I mean it is positive, I mean that it is a stimulatory. Glutamate, it is a stimulatory, and it has relation with the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and finally some things and some processes happen in the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and finally it will release another neurotransmitter to the paraventricular nucleus. What happens then? From the paraventricular nucleus there will be a track to the cervical ganglion, and this track is called the sympathetic preganglionic because this is a ganglion, and it is called the suprachiasmatic ganglion. So this is the preganglion sympathetic pathway. So this is the preganglionic axon, and in here neurotransmitters will be released, and finally the post-ganglionic and the post-sympathetic track and nerve is going by its axons in here and have relation to the pineal gland. But what happens? So this is the sympathetic pathway. The light came to the retina, and finally by the ganglion cells the action potential was created and it is going, and glutamate is released. And glutamate is the stimulatory neurotransmitter, and in here I have the suprachiasmatic nucleus. It has relation to the paraventricular nucleus. Paraventricular nucleus sends its axons, which are called the sympathetic presynaptic ganglion nerve in here, and finally the postsynaptic axon. It is in here and it releases neurotransmitter. This neurotransmitter is called norepinephrine, and on the pineal gland, on the cells of the pineal gland, the outer surface, we have receptor for norepinephrine, so they bind to each other, norepinephrine and epinephrine, they bind to each other, and finally melatonin is created in here because of this binding norepinephrine to its receptor. But what is the process of creating this melatonin? Well, tryptophan is the precursor for 5-hydroxytryptamine, and then this is the precursor for serotonin, and finally the melatonin. What norepinephrine does is affecting these pathways and making them fast and furious. So what norepinephrine does is going to stimulate these processes, which makes the tryptophan to make 5-hydroxytryptamine, and also then serotonin, and finally the melatonin. And melatonin will come and affect the suprachiasmatic nucleus in here and reset the biological clock. It means that if it is, for example, night, it will tell this melatonin is increased a lot and this melatonin is huge, and it will tell the suprachiasmatic nucleus, okay, the person must sleep. Okay, and the suprachiasmatic nucleus will make the body ready for a sleep. But if it is day, if it is light, this melatonin is less. What I mean? I mean that if the light in here, if it is day and the light in here is huge and it is a lot, the retina receives this, but it is inhibitory pathway. And then in suprachiasmatic nucleus, some processes happen that later in paraventricular nucleus, when the action potential is sent and finally another action potential is in here, this melatonin is not going to be made a lot, and in fact this norepinephrine in here is less. So if it is day, if the light is a lot, the norepinephrine finally in here is less, for example in the day, during the day, so melatonin is less finally and we don't sleep. But if it is dark, then the action potentials in here are so stimulatory, and finally in this process we have lots of norepinephrine, and norepinephrine will bind to its adrenergic receptor, and then we have lots of melatonin. So this was a pathway. And finally in the pineal gland we have pinealocyte cells, and they are called chef cells or principal cells, and they are responsible for these processes. So all in all, it was whatever I wanted to tell you in this video, and that's it about the pineal gland. So all in all, the pineal gland does what? It produces melatonin, but it depends on norepinephrine in here, and this norepinephrine in here depends on the day or night. If it is day, it is less. If it is night, it is a lot, and if it is night, then it will reset the biological clock. Thank you.